What a surprise. Guess there are other middle school-aged espers besides you, Shigeo.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of them are destined to meet each other.
Are you a natural?
Right, this is going to be really intriguing, but also a huge threat. Because this is such a big part of his identity.
Energy next to you. Are you that thing's master?
No.
It's a long story.
Me.
I stole his religion from him and became God. Tell you about it sometime.
We need to establish something. How the hierarchy works around here.
I think we're about to find out how the hierarchy works around here. You're about to discover mob's supremacy. Mob primacy. Episode 5, Ochimusha. The battle begins between two powerful middle school students. But he didn't get tripped up though, did he?
I haven't done anything to you.
We gotta establish the hierarchy. Don't you understand how much this means to me? I am the main character of the world.
Bet he's lived his life as a big fish in a very small pond.
Yeah, he's over-leaning on this aspect of himself. Very astute observation, Slimeball. Thank you.
Telekinesis. It lets you move objects around and stuff.
So are you up for doing that?
Nah, makes me nauseous.
He could, though, if he wanted to. He could do a lot more.
Looks like nothing more than weird movements to him. Damn it.
Yeah, you're just sort of dancing around.
You need to retaliate and hit him with something big.
I don't think
No,
he cares.
I can't. You're not supposed to use psychic powers against people, remember?
He's not really in any danger.
That kid's putting his abilities to good use and living a fulfilling life. On the flip side, look at you.
Oh no.
Do you really think there's anything appealing about you without your psychic powers?
That's the whole point. That's the journey that he's on.
We mustn't let it get to our heads and think we're special or above them. Confidence in your powers is fine, but you mustn't get conceited. Depending on how we choose to use them, they can also be deadly weapons. They're
Yes.
just the same as knives.
But you can also cook delicious meals with them. Look at this guy. Look at this Onizuka looking dude with a heart of gold that I love so dearly. Well, that's really crystallized, hasn't it? Very clear question forming about what gives you value. And I think there's some truth to a lot of what people see in Mob about his psychic talents. Like, there's something really great and valuable about innate gifts. But that's sort of only the starting point, you know, and it kind of runs dry really quickly when you're trying to derive personal meaning and satisfaction from things that were kind of luck, you know, things that we're born with. For me, the things I get the most personal utility from and satisfaction from are things I feel I've earned, things that were not guaranteed for me or that could have easily not been the case, but that through some degree of luck, you know, but also through like focus and choice, I turned into things that I felt really good about. One thing I've experienced and seen a lot around me related to this is one of the greatest curses I think you can give to a child is to tell them repeatedly that they're smart. Kids who are told they're the best and that they're geniuses and whatever, there's a risk of them being sort of trapped in that illusion forever. And the unfortunate result of that is that they become less smart. Like they end up not being fully smart because their intelligence is so constrained, and it's a competitive thing where they always have to prove themselves and always have to measure up and become people who like spout facts and don't really have any depth or wisdom. You know, there's a higher level of intelligence to be sought. And part of the reason why that kind of praise is so damaging is because it's not connected to anything action-based. It's like by default, by virtue of your existence, you're intelligent. You don't have to do anything. That one robs kids of purpose. It's like, what do I even need to do in that case? Like, there's nothing to develop if I have this sort of essence of intelligence exuding through my pores. So you're robbed of purpose in that way and are not pushed to actually cultivate things of value, to see being intelligent or wise or whatever as a process of development. And that it's something you actually need to foster rather than this title you have to defend at all costs. Teru seems to have made this classic mistake of looking for internal value like everyone else, but rather than find it in a way that's constructive and builds himself up, he sort of like refinagles the lens so that everyone who doesn't have his power is inferior. People will fall into that trap because it's sort of like laying right there for the taking. What is my value? Am I worth anything? But I have this trait. You know, this trait makes me special. I get points for being X, right? But for me, a lot of the classifiers people use to sort of gain these value points don't actually hold any value because they're just circumstantial. What has a lot more sway for me is who a person is at heart, how cultivated they are as a human being, and what actions they take. Not to mention the fact that this is an outlook on life that leaves you vulnerable. Because if that's the way you're arranging value, all it takes is for someone to threaten your standing in that conceptualization for your whole thing to come crashing down. Or for people who do better than you or get things that you want despite not having the traits you think are so valuable will destabilize your whole world, because it's the world showing you that actually what you thought was valuable about yourself is not really as valuable as you thought it was. And then you're back to being a nothing. Perhaps Mob's greatest instinct is that he's not taking shortcuts. He's looking to really build himself from the ground up. He's looking for what it means to be mob and what actually gives him value. He's ignoring this really, really juicy fruit that's just hanging right in front of him. Like, you're the best psychic ever. You're special, you know? And he's going to be made so much better for that.
That gets ruined once you know Reagan said it.
Anyway, I won't use
He's
it in
right,
the
though.
fight.
Even if he doesn't follow his advice all the time.
I'm going to find some other potential within me to nurture. Not to mention, I started working out. I'm gonna improve myself.
Strong mind and a strong body with strong psychic powers.
You've been given
That's the
psychic
first time I've seen
powers,
Mob
but choose not to
destabilized.
use them? How stupid! There's no reason to live your life stooping to the level of average people!
Judgy much?
Working out, studying, ridiculous!
I mean, you know, I get it. Why would you study?
I'm special, better than others, and the entire world revolves around me!
You can just feel how much he needs this.
And that won't work!
Dimple.
Oh, he's like defending him.
He
made Dimples angry.
Become a god.
Oh, it makes
He's not some second-rate
Dimple's
loser
angry and
like
survives. Oh. Is he dead? No. Mob can bring him back.
He was exorcised.
Why do I feel bad for Dimples? I'm surprised it was only a couple percent. Maybe we're still climbing.
That Tsubomi sure got a nice ass, doesn't she? Who the hell are you calling a ladybug? Want me to show you how to use X-ray vision?
I like how half of the flashbacks are about perversion.
Does it actually bother you that your little pet was erased?
Dimple was a true believer in perversion.
Why do you have to belittle other people by calling them things like average or small fry?
Huh?
I mean,
It's an insecurity at heart.
I'll teach you to underestimate my power!
I mean, Mob's getting tossed around, but it's not actually him losing. He's just sort of not activated. That could all change.
If you won't let me see them, we'll have to try something else.
And these two are both going to be really popular for, like, destroying the school. I mean, Mob's calmness says it all. He's not worried. He's not phased. He already has felt the extent of this guy's powers. Speaking of
knives are
knives,
sharp and dangerous.
depends on what you do with them, right?
I have no intention of killing him. I just
I'm glad
want
we
him to
made that
fight
clear.
back.
That's sort of key
Will you
for this
stop
character.
You'll cause an accident.
You're dead!
Oh no. He's going to 100 right away. Nothing like a bad haircut. Yes! Suck it. Oh, he's got the energy sword.
How
Damn.
dare you? You think I look like some enlarged pencil pusher now, don't you?
That portrait.
I
Love
didn't
it.
say that.
But you thought it.
I thought it. Honestly, though, I understand Teru, and I feel like I've wasted a lot of time going down similar routes. Life is tough. It's really hard to build personal value. It takes a lot of time and a lot of hard work, and the path is unclear. And in the meantime, there are a lot of shortcuts, and there are these temporary models we make of value in order to sort of give us direction. Like, someone with value is someone who X, right? Someone with value is someone who has this, but then with those models, it can be really painful to encounter people that have the things that we so desperately covet and value seemingly effortlessly while we sort of struggle with it. It hurts to look at one's own insignificance and feel like one is low ranked. Nobody feels good about that. Hence the instinct to try to pull everything down rather than trying to push oneself up. But then there are certain people who are sort of these unavoidable, unignorable beacons of greatness. They just have the things that we want and we can't drag them down. The irony being, of course, that a lot of times people in positions that we covet don't in fact get the utility we think they get from the positions they're in. I've had experiences with large degrees of attention and adoration, and I can tell you, it didn't really solve any fundamental problems of my soul. But that's sort of beside the point. I think when it goes well, those things become sort of challenges. It's like, well, what are the things that I'm coveting about these other people's lives? And rather than trying to like squirm out of that, to look directly at what those things are. And the trick is, it's probably not the specifics of those things themselves, but the fact that those people are doing cool shit. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the same cool shit. It just means that you probably need to be doing cool shit, or at least trying it. And if you were to do that, you would discover that it's not really those things that do it. It's the meeting of yourself that does it. It's the sort of action. It's the deliberation. It's the proving yourself to yourself, like the conquering of yourself in your own life and going from like thought to execution to reward. The feeling of setting out to ascend a mountain and then reaching a peak, even if it's not the same peak you thought you were aiming for. That's the journey of life. And it sort of does no good for anyone to like look around at all these mountains and decide to like demolish them and raise them to the ground so that no one can climb them, at least mentally speaking. That's what Mob is doing. Mob is like looking at all this greatness around him and he's like, how do I ascend to these levels? Like, where am I going? Who do I want to become? And he could easily sort of just lean on this thing he already has, but that's weak. That's easy. It's not rich. And in that sense, he actually ends up being stronger than Teru because he's more free. His whole identity is not so tightly wound up in this kind of false narrative that he's created for himself.
And now that it's come to this, I feel I must know your name. What is it?
It's Mob. And don't you forget it.
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you, Taruki.
No, it's
That's quite the
not
introduction.
this. It isn't as if we're friends now or anything.
Oh, but you will be. You will be. There's too much respect here. This is fear and respect.
Come on! What's wrong?
Pretty cool.
You gotta start fighting back!
Pretty great attacks for a middle-aged pencil pusher.
Popular and the main character of my story!
Oh no, he's losing it. He's losing his crap.
How are you able to find all of this confidence in yourself?
Oh, Mob. It's not confidence. It's the opposite.
Let's have a test of strength!
No way.
Why not?
I don't need to. I'm already
It's okay,
stronger
come
than
at
you.
me.
Because I don't want to hurt you, that's why.
Yeah.
Huh?
This is deeply humiliating.
Not like I'm some average Joe you're dealing with here.
You've hinged your entire identity on this. Now you're gonna reap the rewards.
You're no better than...
What did you say?
I mean, you're kind of going overboard here.
A bit, yeah. We're a bit emotional.
It's because you and I are the same. And not because we both have psychic powers. But the fact that you have no confidence in yourself.
Right.
If you take away your abilities, there'll be nothing left.
Right. Right. As empty as his middle-aged pencil-pushing head.
Just another loser who won't leave a mark in this world.
Right.
That's
This
me.
is some critical damage from Mob.
Deep down, you're the
Oh
same
no,
as
his
I am.
thing
You just
deflated.
don't want to admit that you're nothing without your
It has
psychic
gone
powers.
limp. Speaking of middle-aged pencil pushing, he's not pushing many pencils these days. Like pushing this rope. No, you cut him so deep. You cut him so deep to his core.
What am I
Like
doing?
that was everything.
How did this happen?
The reason Mob is better than him is not his abilities, although his abilities are also better. It's that Mob isn't clinging to a false friend. The false friend of like innate skill.
Your very existence
Cast a light on my darkness.
destroyed that!
No, I won't.
Some dedication, but I mean, don't die.
Is this it?
Oh no! Aw! Oh, that's so...
What the hell was that? How
Aw.
many times are you gonna reject
Aw,
me?
that's so cute. This little feeble punch. I love it. Don't you see he has so
Don't
much...
you get it?
He continues
Change that
the
easy.
barrage, the brutal assault.
Otherwise, I'm going to.
Chill, dude. Come on, it's not...
Brother!
Oh, did he have a... Oh, there was an incident. There was a Hanajima incident. This is not coming from nothing. This is not just some arbitrary set of ethics. This is lived. I don't know, Mob. I don't... Okay, alright.
Hey, Kageyama? Hey, wake
I feel like
up.
he would have died,
Wait.
actually, for it. Even though nobody would have blamed them for destroying this middle-aged pencil pusher.
Or so it seemed.
Oh, well, we got there. The counter kept climbing, even in unconsciousness.
Do you
Power
really
level
feel
unknown.
like fighting?
We're in the triple digits.
In the end, you couldn't stay
It's
true
terrifying.
to your ideals either! Bring it!
I mean, literally, he's unconscious. I don't know. I don't blame him. Clothes off.
You broke down and used them against another person! So how does it feel?
He's still trying to take people down as a means of bringing himself up.
My powers are being sucked in by Kageyama!
That's the source of your powers too?
Teru sensed something that must never be touched in there. Something incomparable.
Ooh, what the heck is that?
Identity unknown.
That was horrifying. The hell?
What is this? What in the world did I awaken?
This is a school vacation.
I guess I'm just an average person after all.
Mob, like, blasted him into humility, and all it took was sending him to heaven. But now he's free.
He failed to change as he had promised himself.
It's not your fault, Mob. You were like being choked to death.
And the feeling he would never be able to conquer himself. Sadness.
I understand that too. And that's incredibly moving. It's just different. Like, anyone can conceptualize themselves as being like perfectly masterful of every situation and capable when they're in a state of calm and there's no stakes, right? But then you get put in the moment, emotions start flowing, it's totally different. One of the real difficulties about navigating that is that the way to learn how to control it is to be in those situations and bring them under control. You sort of have to be in the state you're trying to change in order to change the state. But obviously that contains a great risk because there's a reason why you're avoidant of that state. To give a really simple low stakes example, it's weird how like illuminating this was for me, but being someone who is really easily addicted to nicotine, you learn that it's really easy to think about quitting smoking. It's really easy to feel like you can do it. But the thing is, once you go into a state of actual withdrawal, your whole internal schema is compromised. And so the same you that was thinking those thoughts so confidently about quitting is no longer there. So then there are these moments of extreme temptation, and actually it's only those moments that count. It's resisting the urge in those moments that train you out of that bring yourself under control. It's resisting that incredibly intense urge in that moment that counts towards actual change, which is one of many reasons why true, like, internalized ability and wisdom or whatever is not going to come from sitting around thinking about oneself, but it's going to be about engaging in the world. It's going to be about actually being in those moments and testing to see who you really are first, and then sort of having that benchmark and aiming for something better, and then continuing to live, like continuing to be in moments that are challenging to like push out the boundaries of what you're capable of. And just from experience, I know that it takes a lot of failure. It does come with feelings of powerlessness for me and deep regret, every time I don't live up to myself in the way I think I should. But in a way, that's also fine, because that just means that's where I am now. And the more accurately I understand myself and my own danger and my own weaknesses, the better chance I have of actually overcoming them. To have your own weakness and flaws exposed makes you feel like you're worse off than you were a moment before when you were conceptualizing yourself as this, perfect being or really competent person. But actually you're now stronger by that knowledge, I think, because what that was an illusion. It was a falsity. Mob is committed to this goal and told himself he had changed, but there's still something more he needs to find. I feel like that's actually part of his instinct to be on this journey. It's probably all going to be connected, and he will get there, even if this is a humiliating personal defeat.
Ah! He's been beaten, stripped, and shaved!
Oh no!
What that happened to my hair?
Those guys.
Speaking of enforcing your status.
You're not hurt, are you?
No, I'm fine. Really.
But you take away these guys' muscles and they're still great.
I completely lost.
Join the Body Improvement Club. Improve your body and your mind.
Mob searched for about 3 hours, but he couldn't find Dimple anywhere.
Oh yeah, Dimple. I feel like he'll be back.
You seem kind of down. Did something happen?
Yes, I destroyed my whole school.
If you want to talk about it, I'm here.
You might hear something about the school being turned to rubble later.
You mean when you got super carsick and threw up into the hood of my jacket?
That's the real crime. Now, I bet this memory he's thinking about meant a lot to his younger brother.
With that accident involving my
Probably
power,
changed his entire life.
You were there to protect me. Just forget about it. It's no big deal.
More to this story, though. Clearly, some weird darkness brewing with the brother. A great seeming guy, don't get me wrong, but...
Countless people reported seeing a supernatural phenomenon in the stormy skies above Seasoning City.
Yeah, like I said, you might see something about this on the news.
The theory that this was man-made...
Dead.
That wasn't him. That wasn't my brother.
Oh, what is he, like a conduit for some other dark force? I feel like that might end up working really well as a symbol of internal darkness, the beast within that could be harmonized. Who's controlling who?
No appetite.
He caught a cold.
You should see the other guy. The other guy caught middle-aged pencil pusher disease, and it is not pretty. There's an interesting risk for Ritsu brewing. He seems like a good kid, but there's something a little bit warped about where he is. Speaking of misalignment. So in this episode, I really love the interaction between Mob and Teru. Teru, I mean, if we're talking about like media as a reflection for life, there's some really deep and real traps in this episode. Like, it's about leaning on psychic powers, but it could really be any trait. It could be anything. Just self-identity in a nutshell. It's one of the fundamental, most basic questions of life, but for all of its importance, I feel like we do so much dancing around it without actually getting to it. I feel like there are just so many confused messages about what actual value is. One of them is that you're born with self-worth and value. There's truth to this idea in that life is a gift, and that the potential each human being has is unbelievable. But there's a missing part of that equation, which is then meeting that potential, working to pay service to the unbelievable gifts we've been granted. Another idea I see becoming increasingly popular, even if it's not totally explicit in media, especially Western media, is that value is derived from adversity. It's like, in order for a character to be likable, they must have experienced tragedy, or they must have a sympathetic backstory, or they have certain external qualities that immediately give them points. I was talking about this in Arcane, where I was saying that like being poor does not give you any points, just as being rich doesn't give you any points. Having experienced immense hardship doesn't give you any character points, as having experienced no hardship doesn't give you any character points. It's interesting in that show, speaking of like dancing around it, there's even that line in the show, what makes you different makes you strong, from Vander to Powder. I don't think that's it. I think that actually is similar to the very mistake Teru's making, you know, trying to find some external trait, you know, or some sort of unearned thing that already exists as a way of like leaning in and creating value without having to do anything. You know, for me, what makes you strong, what makes you good, what gives you self-identity is going to be very connected to responsibility. It's going to be, like I said, meeting that other half of the equation. Like, okay, you have potential, you have gifts. Well, what are you doing with them? Who are you? How awake are you? How much are you aligned with what life actually is? How many illusions are you building up for yourself in order to shield yourself from doing the difficult work of becoming better and doing the hard work of like matching your own ideals? Given what you were born with, what have you done with them? Who have you chosen to become? And how do you feel about what you've built when you look in the mirror? And I think initially that's more terrifying, but if accepted, I think it's one of the most beautiful things, because we can divorce ourselves at least somewhat from this realm of just pure luck. It's like you finally, for the first time, have some kind of self-autonomy. You have some kind of freedom. It's maybe the only area of our lives in which we have any freedom in this like crazy, chaotic universe. You don't want your life and your value to be dictated by circumstance. You want people to be able to be great and fully realized despite circumstance, in my opinion. And I'm becoming increasingly convinced that like Western media has gone lost. It's like gone astray, and that somehow anime is like preserving this really hard-fought heroic goodness that doesn't make excuses, that strives for things, you know, that doesn't seek to blame the environment or put people into classes or think that a character being dark and troubled is the same thing as being good. And Mob, to me, largely is an avatar in my mind for this struggle. He's like not letting himself rest on the things that would be so easy and sweet to rest on, because he knows there's something sweeter to be had, which is like real, full, amazing, glorious, deliberately chosen Mob, as opposed to like the Mob that shows off a power and just has this empty adoration of fans who are just looking for something to devote their lives to because they themselves have no meaning. Or someone like Teru who doesn't know how to build a rich life and so will adjust the lens so what he already is the highest ideal when it's clearly not. So I'm on Mob's side, and I also know just from his process and just from the fact that even though he can't see it, he's doing some of the most difficult things you could possibly do. I know he's gonna make it, and the stakes were surprisingly high for me in that.